Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us this Friday. I'm Jeanelle Slade. Russ is off tonight. Finally, after 22 months, the Justice Department announces Robert Mueller has wrapped up his investigation. Charges against 37 defendants, 7 guilty pleas, and 1 conviction at trial. The probe into the Russian election interference, possible Trump campaign collusion with Moscow, and obstruction of justice is done. The special counsel's confidential report was handed over to the Attorney General earlier today. CBS News correspondent Mola Lengi has more on what's next.
The Mueller report is now in the hands of the Attorney General. A senior Justice Department official tells CBS News special counsel Robert Mueller is not recommending any further indictments. Attorney General William Barr wrote a letter to the House and Senate Judiciary Committees saying the special counsel has submitted to me today a confidential report explaining the prosecution or declination decisions he has reached. Barr added he may be in a position to advise you of the special counsel's principal conclusions as soon as this weekend.
That is all he's required to do. But that doesn't mean that he can't release the report in some form.
The report follows a nearly 2-year investigation and is described as comprehensive. Few have seen it, including White House officials and President Trump. Before leaving for Mar-a-Lago Friday, the president took aim again at the investigation.
There was no collusion, there was no obstruction, everybody knows it. It's all a big hoax. I call it the witch hunt.
Principal conclusions of the report are expected to be made public, but many Democrats say it needs to be released in full.
It's imperative for Mr. Barr to make the full report public and provide its underlying documentation and findings to Congress.
Since the investigation began, 6 of the president's associates have been charged with crimes, ranging from lying to the FBI to tax evasion. Barr says he'll determine what information can be released to the public after speaking with Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein and the special counsel. Mola Lengi, CBS News, the White House.
White House attorneys are with President Trump in Florida this weekend. New details tonight surrounding the massive Miles City sex abuse case, which alleges a former high school athletic trainer targeted hundreds of teenage boys. A survivor of the assault now reveals that he told at least 2 coaches about the abuse numerous times, but never did a school official step in to stop it. Q2's Andrea Lutz joins us now with those new details. Andrea.
Yeah, Jeanelle, statements taken in just the last few days reveal student athletes who attended Custer County High School were told to, quote, suck it up after alerting a coach of inappropriate touching by James Jensen. The statements are part of a civil suit filed by 32 men who say that they were sexually abused by Jensen as a part of a routine the trainer called the program. Their attorneys say Jensen inappropriately rubbed and touched the boys under the guise of a treatment to improve performance. Attorneys for the Miles City Unified School District argue the case should be dismissed and maintain school officials weren't aware of the extent of Jensen's conduct, I should say. Now, survivor statements also reveal athletes were forced to endure abuse by Jensen and rewarded with a varsity letter in a student training program. Plaintiffs' attorneys say students were never made aware of a 1997 memo issued to Jensen for the misconduct that he was accused of with students. They say that itself could have saved even more students from being abused. Jeanelle.
All right. Thanks so much, Andrea. A Lockwood husband and wife plead not guilty in the death of their little girl. 34-year-old Laura Mink and 37-year-old Ronald Mink faced a judge this morning on charges of deliberate homicide. Their 17-month-old found dead of suspected dehydration and neglect earlier this month. Deputies responded to this home on Tigard Avenue in Lockwood on March 7th to find the baby unresponsive. The couple's other child, a 2.5-year-old boy, was also removed from the home and placed in protective custody. Laura Mink is also 8.5 months pregnant. Today, Judge Gregory Todd continued bond for each of them at $500,000. Well, the walls of at least 2 buildings on the Montana State campus that suffered roof collapses earlier this month are now coming down. Since 1973, both the north and south gyms, separated by the upper gym, have stood tall on MSU's campus. Today, 46 years later, the entire complex ripped down. MSU spokesman Michael Becker says the goal, demolish and rebuild, saving the other buildings nearby. As for what will replace those gyms, that could be in the hands of students.
This is a student building. It's paid for by student fees. Students are some of its primary users, and we want to make sure that they are deeply involved in the process as we go forward.
MSU officials hope the demolition will help determine what caused those roofs to cave in. Well, talks are delayed at the Montana legislature when it comes to Montana's role in Medicaid expansion. A committee intended to vote today on 2 bills to continue the program, which provides government health care to low-income Montanans. Lawmakers say they have yet to see fiscal analysis on one of the bills, and amendments for another bill are still being prepared. The committee is facing a Wednesday deadline to complete spending bills. With all the snow covering the greens, local golfers are feeling spring fever in a big way. And because area courses are not expected to open until possibly next week, the lines for local simulators are filling up.
It's really cool, especially with the last few winters that we've had in Montana. It's great to come down and hit some balls and kind of keep your swing over the winter. A lot of drill work, get people working on their golf game. When the season gets here, they're in mid-season form. A lot earlier, they're ready to play. They go out and start having fun right away.
There are also other simulators in town, including Shields. Now, simulators like the one at Mitchell Golf offer more than 60 different golf course choices that are real courses nationwide. They also include a driving range, a chipping green, and putting green, whether there's rain, snow, or shine. Turning to weather, Rob Griggs, this sun is melting the snow and at the same time causing a mess on some of our rivers.
It is. That's the big concern we have right now, Jeanelle. Got a few really nice pictures today from a friend of ours. This is the Powder River that Michelle Wolf photographed for us today. Now, you see the depth of some of these ice chunks. It's rather impressive, and it's rather expansive, too. This is along the Powder River just before the junction of the Yellowstone River and the I-94 bridge between Terry and Glendive in that area. But just take a look at some of these dramatic pictures. Now, at the moment, that isn't causing any particular big problem for the Powder River, but obviously that's going to be a scene we'll get used to. We do have a flood warning right now on a section of the Yellowstone River up toward Hysham. So we'll talk about what's happening with that and how this warm weather will stick around for at least another day or so before it changes. The forecast in just a little bit, Jeanelle.
All right, thanks so much, Rob. Well, 406 Pride will open its first center in Billings this weekend. Located in the First Congregational Church at 310 North 27th Street, it will be the third center across Montana. 406 Pride has been working on remodeling the space since November, and the group is excited to show it off. It will offer workshops and educational materials for the LGBTQ community and their allies, as well as mental health resources. Following the failure of the non-discrimination ordinance proposed in 2014, the 406 Pride president says it was time to create an inclusive place for all.
When you go out in the private space, in the private sector, they can kick you out just for being gay. There's no protection. So this is our safe space that's open to all, and we can have whatever we want to do here, any meetings, movie nights, community workshops, all of those things that don't happen in Billings for the LGBT community because there's no space. It is directly for them.
And the Resource Center will hold its open house tomorrow at 2 p.m. Changing the future of Africa through song. Some of the country's neediest and most vulnerable children are coming to Billings and Red Lodge to share their message. Take a listen. The African Children's Choir will perform at the Red Lodge Veterans Memorial Civic Center this Sunday at 11 a.m. and again at Billings First United Methodist Church in downtown Billings at 7 o'clock that night. Admission is free, but free will offerings will also be accepted. The organization helps African children break away from the everyday cycle of poverty and hopelessness through education. Since it began 30 years ago, it has helped more than 52,000 children. Coming up on tonight's 10 o'clock news, the preservation of Montana's history, hoping for a helping hand from the Montana legislature. We'll find out what's being done. And later in sports, we go back to Des Moines and hear from the Grizz after their season came to an end last night.
You're watching MTN News with Jeanelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire and sports with Scott Breen. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.